Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, we are going to be going over parts of the Falconer reveal today. Now, of course, if you want to see the full Falconer reveal, I would heavily suggest checking out Zizaran's video, which I'll be leaving down in the description below, or you can check out the full Maxroll post, as those are the guys that revealed it. Now, we're going to be going over Falconer a little bit here. Now, I saw all of the dive bombs, the Falconeer stuff, all the fun bird stuff. But I'll be honest, all that looks kind of meh to me. Obviously, it's going to be insane, but I'm not a big fan of Rogue, and a lot of this stuff seems very forced, at least for Falconer. But the thing that actually got me excited was Net. Now, Net is a new skill that can be accessed by all the masteries for Rogue, and it is a throwing attack, which is nice because we need more throwing attacks in this video game because we don't have enough as it currently stands. And these nets, they make enemies immobilized when you attack with them. And of course, bosses have less movement speed instead. Now, overall, net looks like a mess skill to begin with, but thankfully there's a lot of passives that makes net go from meh to absolutely insane in a few nodes here. So the first node that we want to talk about is, of course, bold throw. So bold throw makes it so that when you throw the net, you no longer flip back, because that flip back animation is absolute cancer, and I absolutely hate it. So we're going to instantly remove that. Now, the next few nodes are what I really care about. So we have net trap here. Now, instead of throwing a net at enemies, we throw a trap that releases a net when it triggers by an enemy, right? We can have 6 net traps active and they can last 30 seconds. Now, this is really cool as we can just throw the nets on the ground and then they attack enemies. And that will make it much more preferable for clear, as you'll see in a moment here. Now, what's really cool is we can also grab the nodes after it, server of tricks, where we can throw 3 nets at once, so that of course, we can get 3 nets at once. Now that's all cool and all, but the node after this one is the one I really care about, and that is spear trap. Now, net traps now also use puncture for you when they are triggered. This will use the melee or bow version of puncture depending on your equipped weapon. And of course, they also consume the mana cost of puncture. So if you go with like the triple puncture, it will also consume the mana cost. This has a lot of implications. So for bleed puncture, this is going to be insane. As you use, of course, puncture for bleed and bleed chance stacking, all of the global bleed chance that puncture has will also apply to nets. And nets are hits and they can deal bleeds. Like, for instance, they have like rending wires, right? So they can also hit with the bleed. They also get a lot of bleed duration, more damage with bleed, and they also get more damage per dodge rating, which is really cool. So you can actually do a pretty decent net build where you throw down nets, they trigger punctures, and you can deal more damage with the nets. And you also, of course, use puncture. Puncture is a very decent skill. It's very close to being viable in endgame, at least like a melee kind of puncture build. And this is essentially ramped it up to 11 because instead of throwing out 1 puncture whenever you attack an enemy with like a melee attack or a puncture bow attack, you now throw out 3 of them with server of tricks. Now, of course, you can only have a max of 6 traps at a time, and if the throwing like AoE is too big for most bosses, it'll be a little awkward. But in theory, it should be fine for most bosses. So we'll throw out three of these nets. They'll trigger on the boss, and then we'll get 3 punctures. Hopefully, that's how it'll work. And that will mean that we'll deal a very large amount of damage very quickly with bleed, and we can get the minus mana cost rings. We can get throwing attack speed, and we can use a one-hander and a shield as well if we go Falconer, or we can go dual wielding if we go Blade Dancer. And all of that combined means that there will now finally be a viable puncture build. And I'm thanking God right now because I've been wanting a viable puncture build for the longest of times because I really like puncture, and I've seen some of the footage, as you'll see on the screen right now, with the puncture like net trap stuff. It looks absolutely amazing. I'm very happy with it. I think this is by far the most exciting thing I've seen for Falconer myself, is finally we're going to be able to play puncture. Now, the coolest thing though, if you are unaware, it turns out uh yeah, there's a few things here. The biggest thing by far is puncture can apply a stack of shadow daggers on hit, and of course with the nets you do 3, of course, shadow dagger stacks. So in theory, if you get, net traps to like 0 mana and you're like spamming it, right? You can end up actually applying a very large amount of Shadow Dagger stacks very quickly with this setup because you'll get like 3 Shadow Dagger stacks per attack. So that's going to be interesting as well. Now, overall, I'm very excited for net in general. There's a few other things that we can talk about as well for this build. So we can actually play Smoke Bomb Shadow Daggers again. So why is that? Well, there is a node here, and the node that we're talking about is, of course, Cloudgatherer. So if we utilize Dive Bomb with the Falcon stuff, there's a node inside, of course, Dive Bomb that's called Cloudgatherer. If your Falcon lands inside the area of your Smoke Bomb, the smoke area lasts longer. This is very important, as now we can essentially make our Smoke Bomb last a little bit longer. That's important, as there was actually a very cool build that we've been playing recently, and that's called Shadow Dagger Smoke Bomb, or just Shadow Dagger Marksman in general. What you do is you utilize Smoke Bomb, right, to apply Shadow Dagger stacks for you in an area. And this Dive Bomb, what it does is it gives us just that eensy little bit of extra duration that we've been waiting for. So the problem is, this node for Shadow Daggers, it used to say every second it would apply it, but now there's like a chance to apply it. And that makes it so that on average, you only apply 3 Shadow Dagger stacks at the end of the duration, which means, of course, they don't get a Shadow Dagger proc and they don't die. But thankfully, with Cloudgatherer, we can actually manage to, of course, make the Smoke Bomb last a little bit longer. We just simply throw down Smoke Bomb, throw down Dive Bomb, and then bam, our cloud lasts long enough to the point where, of course, we can apply Shadow Daggers to everything. And then, of course, as well, instead of doing the old stuff where we attacked with a bow to get Shadow Dagger like puncture procs, right? Now we can just use net to apply Shadow Daggers instead for us with, of course, the puncture procs and all that. So overall, I'm very excited for Falconer for the completely wrong reasons, because net looks like an amazing skill that has a lot of synergy with the rest of Rogue that I've been waiting for. This is the skill I've been waiting for, guys. The skill that makes puncture viable. Now, with all that being said, if you haven't already, I'd heavily suggest leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. Also, as well, please give Maxroll some love down below. Give some Zizaran some love down below, as they put the entire reveal into one section instead of trying to divide it upon 7. With all that being said, this has been Dread. Off to go do something else.